Good morning, kids. Today we're checking out a brand new video from Popcross Studios about what if more Digimon were SCPs. Let's hop in and see who gets the monster virus today. Nope, that doesn't really quite work. Whatever. Oh, duh, I could have said let's see who gets digitized today. Damn it, why didn't I think of that first?
I said that if the first Digimon as SCPs video got 6,000
Oh god! I'm so sorry again, folks. Hold on.
likes while I was on vacation, I would do a sequel when I got back.
Yeah.
We didn't quite hit
Again, I'm so sorry. Moving on.
that number, but while I was off, I kept thinking about how much I wanted to do another episode because I love Digimon designs and my Kawagamon turned out super cool. So a few days into my break, I just decided I was going to do another regardless of whether we got that number or not. Also, sorry about my voice. I got a bit of a cold on my last day of vacation, and I'm recording this video at the last possible minute because if I tried recording this a few days ago, it would have sounded like this and nobody would be having a good time. Hey, that's kind of a good Benny Sharp's mom voice. Benny Sharp, you get that away from your nose. It's not baby powder. Your grandpa's lying to you. Setting the wrong tone for this video right off the bat. Good stuff. Let's get into it, shall we?
Benny Sharp on cocaine.
Like
now that's funny.
Subscribe if you feel like. But either way,
enjoy the show.
Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, allow me to apologize if my voice sounds somewhat strained.
We're starting off first with the evolution, Digivolution of Tentamon on the Kabuterimon. I kind of watched Digimon a lot as a kid, so I kind of got a knack if I can remember the names.
For today's lecture, as I aided in restorations after the recent Ruby Sector biome containment breach, I was struck in the throat by the horn of a member of the SCP-P306 species. I took the allotted 3 hours of sick leave we are all entitled to, but shockingly that was not enough to make a full recovery. Anyhow, speaking of containment breaches, the reason we are returning today to the subcategory of entities falling under SCP-D that spawn originally from an alternate digital world is because of yet another breakout that occurred this week, this one being at Site 15 and involving entities of the SCP-D subclassification. This has made it clear that more Foundation personnel should be made aware of the abilities of some of the creatures of this variety that we have in containment. One of the creatures that breached containment was SCP-D015, which we just so happened to have discussed in my previous lecture. More coincidentally still, the operative that most heavily played a role in its recontainment was also mentioned previously, Professor Izzy Izumi. Under Professor Izumi's command, his own digital monster ally was able to restrain the entity until it could be rendered unconscious by on-site operatives. We will start by discussing the Professor's own ally, in the state it was in while assisting at the Site 15 breach. Item number SCP-D023. Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. D023 is free to roam about Site 15 under Professor Izumi's watch, though it must remain in one of its 3 prior states of evolution, most commonly choosing to stay in its D011 state as a...
Yeah, it can't stay as Kabuterimon because imagine rounding a corner and being greeted by that face. You'd be screaming, and same does a containment brain, so it's best for him just to say as Tentamon. No, Tentamon. There you go.
4-foot-tall crimson beetle.
Got it.
A containment cell has been prepped with electric absorption panels in case the entity does ever step too far out of line. Description: SCP-D023 is a 16-foot-tall semi-humanoid beetle. It has a largely blue body, save for its head, which is predominantly dark gray. Its mouth contains 15 teeth, 6 of which are attached to a secondary laterally moving jaw that appears somewhat like a set of mandibles. It has 4 wings, 4 arms, 2 legs, and a stinger on the front of its pelvis. The entity's primary method of attack is to conduct electricity within its own body to project out in various ways. Most commonly, it will cross its arms in front of its chest, at which point a sparking blue and purple ball of electricity will form before it, and it will then stretch out its arms, propelling the orb forwards towards a target. Like SCP-D008 discussed in the prior lecture, D023, though found in a different state of evolution at the time, was one of the first friendly SCPs encountered when Professor Izumi led a group of 6 other operatives to the digital world for the first time. The two quickly formed a bond, and D023 willingly came back to our world and utilized its abilities to conduct electricity, among other powers, to assist Professor Izumi in his experiments and research. While the form referred to as D023 is the one it will commonly take when needed for combat, it is able to further evolve with Professor Izumi's assistance, utilizing the devices he created that allow us to access the digital world in the first place. Its following stage of evolution is a larger form, more heavily resembling a beetle with a red, rounded shell and a broader horn, like that of a Japanese rhinoceros beetle. Further still,
let's see, if I remember correctly, that one is not Hercules Kabuterimon, that is the ultimate form, or Mega, one of those. I think it's just Mega Kabuterimon? Yeah, I think that's right.
On one occasion, it has shown the capacity to change into a golden form, with an extra set of mandibles spawning from the sides of its head. Professor Izumi and D023 have been informed that this entity is not permitted to take on this golden form while in our world, however, as it grew to nearly 100 feet tall in this state and was far too difficult to keep concealed from civilian eyes. D023 thus far has not done anything to show disloyalty to Professor Izumi or the Foundation, though we do suspect its allegiances lie more with the Professor and not the Foundation itself.
I mean, yeah, it's gonna be with the best friend, his best buddy. But anyways, love it so far.
Now, most entities we've discussed...
Really? Numamon? I mean, honestly, this is gonna be maybe the easiest one.
Regards to this subcategory have either been inherently helpful or violent towards the Foundation. But there are many entities from the digital world that act relatively similar to common herbivorous animals from our own world, only hostile towards those that are hostile towards them. One example of this is a species we have a dozen of in containment, which are item number SCP-D026. Object class, safe. Special containment procedures.
Safe but annoying.
Of D026 are currently being held in a makeshift cell in the basement of Site 15, but are being considered for transport to the Ruby Sector biome. After restorations are completed, that is. It is believed that these entities would likely get along fine with the various breeds of subclass SCP-P that reside there. No further containment notes are required, as these entities have very little in the way of combat capabilities or intelligence, though it is recommended you only wear clothes into their containment that are stain-resistant or easily washed. Description. D026 is a species of green mollusks that possess large humanoid mouths. They are roughly 4 feet tall if measured to the top of their eye stalks, and are often seen to have irregular purple spots running along their heads and backs. Their long human-like tongues are often seen hanging from their mouths. Members of this species, strangely enough, seem to be attracted to human females, and are more likely to approach personnel if the being entering their containment to feed them appears like a conventionally attractive woman. This was originally observed upon the first ventures into the digital world. The group
Numamons are kind of, scummy, to be said easy.
of operatives found themselves in a field full of what looked like scattered vending machines, but hiding inside of each were multiple members of the D026 species. The entities were all drawn towards field operative Mimi Tachikawa, who, by conventional beauty standards, would likely be considered the most physically attractive of the group. As the slimy creatures got too close to her, she struck one with a stun stick as a threat to ward the others away. Instead of fleeing, the entities began to defecate purple fecal matter, then use their eye stalks to fling the substance at Operative Tachikawa and the others. This did not prove fatal or even capable of harming the operatives, but, as you may imagine, was not a particularly pleasant experience. Members of the SCP-D026 species seem to have alternate evolutionary lines. Through research of the ones in containment, we have found that some seem able to transform into a state that resembles a large golden bear. Some will simply change colors, and some will sprout a pair of swan-like wings and gain the power of flight. This is the prominent reason we have put time into researching these entities. While not particularly hostile or helpful, they have been a useful source of information in terms of how evolution works in entities from the digital world.
You know, you probably don't have to go as detailed with Numemon, but yeah, it's actually still pretty good. I like it. Next up.
In speaking of the evolution capabilities of
yes, it's Flamedramon time.
These entities, we should also discuss another method of evolution these creatures have. To refresh your memory, the methods we've covered thus far are 1. That the creatures can evolve to a certain power level naturally, free of human interaction, and 2. That utilizing the devices created by Professor Izumi, which incorporate coding sent to our world from the digital world, human beings can channel their emotional energy through the devices to cause entities of SCP-D to temporarily evolve into highly powerful states. A third method was discovered in later ventures to the digital world. Operatives found a set of what appeared to be oddly shaped rocks or eggs. Each one has a certain emotional resonance and can only be utilized by a digital entity that is in the same vibrational frequency as the emotion associated with the egg. When one of these is held by a Digimon of the correct resonance, they can absorb the digital egg's powers into their own body to enhance their strength and abilities with a specific set of powers determined by the egg used for the temporary transformation. The first entity seen by SCP operatives in an altered state thanks to one of these eggs was item number SCP-D238. Object class, safe. Special containment procedures.
That's Vmon, of course, because, you know, Flamedramon, that's the Digi-Egg of Codex Evo, Almo Evo from Vmon. Wait. There we go.
Not applicable, as this entity is only capable of existing in this form for a period of 37 minutes or less. This form is currently not permitted for use outside of the digital world. Description. D238 is the form taken on by SCP-D234 when it is given access to the digital egg associated with the emotion of courage. The entity, which commonly appears as a 3-foot-tall blue humanoid with draconic-like features, grows with the use of the egg to 7 foot 2 inches tall, measured to the top of its head, not to the top of the blade-like horn it sprouts in this form. This horn is similar to one that appears on the egg itself. It also grows armored plating over its thighs, chest, head, fists, and feet. It also somehow sprouts black belts around its upper arms. But, strange as that may sound, it is far from the most unusual thing to appear on an entity from this realm during an evolution. Some will acquire weapons from thin air, some musical instruments, and some will even acquire punk aesthetic clothing. Anyhow, D234, in transition to D238, becomes significantly stronger and faster with enhancement from this egg. But, most notably, it gains the ability to create and control fire. It can even use the flames to propel itself forward. It has been witnessed utilizing this ability to coat its entire body in flames and launch itself forward like a fire rocket to strike opponents. SCP-D234, currently partnered with field operative Davis Motomiya of the Mobile Task Force Digi-2, has at times been granted access to other specimens of these digital eggs, and in each case has proven naturally proficient in utilizing the abilities gained from them. Permission to use any of these eggs in our own world outside of trials and containment is currently forbidden, but may be made acceptable in the future if circumstances deem it necessary.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, considering that the Digi-Armor eggs are very powerful. I mean, they instantly become champion level. Or, champion level.
Hi there,
hold on, folks. We'll be right back. And we're back.
The final entity we will discuss today is a...
Oh, yeah, we're talking about my boy Gilmon. Well, technically, we're talking about his brother, Dark Gilmon. No, Black Gilmon. It's Black Gilmon. But still, Gilmon is Gilmon. Moving on.
Rather unfortunate case that we are currently working to correct. It is an entity that was once helpful and worked alongside Operative Takato Matsuki, but through a set of failed experiments is now hostile towards all members of the SCP Foundation, including its former ally. Item number SCP-D406-2. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. Until the point at which...
Actually, if you're going with evil, well, with partner on evil, I'm surprised you didn't go with something like, Magildramon.
It can be returned to its former state. D406-2 is to be housed in a standard containment cell with reinforced titanium walls. It is to be provided a loaf of bread every other day to sustain itself. Operative Matsuki is no longer permitted to grant this entity access to its further states of evolution. Description: D406-2 is both literally and figuratively a dark version of the entity once simply called SCP-D406. It is a wingless draconic entity that stands at roughly 4 foot 8 inches tall. Its hide was once largely red in color but is now predominantly black, with some red and white segments. It has the ability to project powerful bursts of flame from its mouth, as well as spawn flames from its claws and forearms.
Nice.
In its prior state as D406, this entity was not particularly intelligent or mature, but loyally followed the commands of Operative Matsuki. Now, as D406-2, it will violently attack any operatives who attempt to enter its containment. The shift to a more hostile form came about through the unfortunate Dark Egg experiments. In the digital world, there have been discovered various viruses that often appear as black gears or rings, or various other forms. When these viruses make physical contact with an entity from this realm, that entity will then be made more violent and aggressive, and if the entity already had a proclivity towards aggression and malice, they will have their abilities and strengths further enhanced. Foundation scientists saw opportunity in this and in the eggs that have been useful in empowering the helpful SCP-D entities we've encountered. Through our world, they accessed the code of both the dark gears and the digital eggs, and made attempts to code a new physical object that would not convert the entity to be more violent, but simply enhance their current state, essentially making them more of what they already are. Their hope was to make a more sustainable physical enhancement, one that would not rely on Foundation operatives channeling their emotional energy through Professor
We humans really gotta learn to stop trying to create new stuff. I mean, look at this. You created corruption. Nice going. Oh, I can't believe you guys.
Izumi's devices. Once completed, the code that they created spawned a set of black eggs in the digital world. Foundation operatives retrieved these and brought them into our physical world for trials. The first trials were done on subjects of the previously discussed species SCP-D026. The mollusk-like entities changed to a physically darker color, like the egg being utilized, and did show enhanced levels of strength and speed. Unfortunately, it was difficult to determine if the entity had become more hostile, as the specimens of D026 have no clear emotional charge for good or ill. Because of this, it was deemed that a trial needed to be done on an SCP-D specimen that was known to be inherently helpful. Somewhat recklessly, when Operative Matsuki heard of the trials being conducted, he offered his own ally, D406, for the experiment, and the creature agreed as well. This clearly should have gone through more levels of clearance before it was greenlit, and punishment has been doled out accordingly, but the scientists went through with the trial, and as you'd expect, the Dark Egg turned D406 into what is now referred to as D406-2, the hostile and more physically powerful entity that we have still not determined how to return to normal. It has been suggested that we simply kill the entity and allow it to be reborn in the digital world, as is what happens whenever an SCP-D entity dies. But it is still unclear if the entity would be reborn with its original emotional drive, or if the Dark Egg's influence would be reborn along with it. Further information will be updated as experimentation continues, but, hopefully needless to say, trials regarding the dark eggs have been shelved for the time being.
Yeah.
That is all the time we have for today.
Here's what you need to do with those eggs. Cook them up. Eat them. No, wait, you technically can't do that. They'll digital code. Screw it. Try and eat them.
Leave suggestions for further SCPs to discuss below. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Yeah, look at what you did to my boy. You made him evil. I love it.
Like Dresden sort of said, please leave more suggestions for Digimon I could use in this series in the comments below. I'm really hoping that this pulls off what Pokemon as SCPs did, where the first episode came out, didn't do super well, until the second episode came out, and then they both kind of started jumping up. If you want that to happen too, maybe share this episode or something. Also, the Disney villain Mortal Kombat episode has just about hit 6,000 likes, so I will be doing the Avatar Legend of Korra Mortal Kombat episode I mentioned in that one. Also, if you're new to this channel and you haven't seen the first episode of Digimon as SCPs, I highly recommend going back to that. Also, all the inks and high-resolution art from this and the last SCP episode will be up on Patreon at the time you're watching this, and I've actually started a new experimental podcast series on there that I'll explain in more detail at some other time when my throat sounds a little bit nicer. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with is actually based on how I treated this week. I was really not feeling very good on my first day back, and there might have been a time in my life where I just gave up and didn't do any work that day, but then there would have been another period in my life when I'd become more self-disciplined, where I would have taken it too far and just been really unpleasant to myself and said, shut up, suck it up, get to work. Nowadays, I was more accepting of the fact that I could be self-disciplined and self-compassionate at the same time. I told myself, look, I have to do this work. I will take a break partway through the day to take a nap and rest and recover a bit more. I'll drink plenty of fluids, take all the vitamins I need, eat things that are specifically good for helping you recover, and I'll go to bed super early for the first few nights of this week, but I do still need to get this work done. Essentially, I'm trying to say you can be self-disciplined without being a really harsh drill sergeant to yourself. You can be kind to yourself while being self-disciplined. I hope that's inspiring. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday. Goodbye.
Well, folks, that's going to be the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link will be in the description below, and I'll see all of you folks next time when we flick on. Peace out.